Okay, hi humans. This is the second in my series on Wendan Tang, warm the gallbladder decoction. If you want to know what's in it, then you should look at the first part of this series. Last time we talked about fright, and this time the cases involve emotions, and insomnia and palpitations and things that are not quite so extreme as the fright cases. So here we go. There. Okay. This is a short one. So under the heading of insomnia in Shuming Yi Leian, Qing Dynasty collection of cases, a doctor named Zhang, treated a young person, probably a young man, who could not sleep for 2 months because of fear. He took countless medicines to calm the shen and to supplement the heart, so he thought it was heart issues and he's working on the heart. But Zhang gave him Wendan Tang, doubling the bancha and adding in chai hu. And suddenly, after one dose, he just slept for 2 whole nights. That was unexpectedly quick. So this is just a short little case. But you shouldn't always think that insomnia and emotions are the heart, that they could be liver or gallbladder or a lot of other organs involved. Under the heading of fearful throbbing, which is a type of palpitations. There are two main types of palpitations. And actually, according to Nigel Weissman, fearful throbbing should be more of a physical kind, like in heart failure or something like that. But here, emotions are involved. So, maybe in the old days, they were more loose with their terminology. Okay, so Ming Dynasty Dr. Wu treated a woman who had lots of qi, but her blood was scant. Fire flourished because back then, today we talk about yin deficiency fire, and they did too, but they also talked about heat and fire could come from blood deficiency, which we don't talk about as much. So fire flourished, and then she had a lot of phlegm because she was dissatisfied with matters. She was dissatisfied with her life for one reason or another. There's so many reasons to be dissatisfied. So she was dissatisfied, and that gave her fearful throbbing. She had palpitations due to her dissatisfaction with her life. Her heart, which generally in this context means her mind was apprehensive and frightened. There were episodes on and off from early morning until evening, episodes of palpitations. It was like this endlessly, so many palpitations. Every time it occurred, she took metal and stone herbs, minerals. She took things like lungu and muli and cinnabar and pearl and who knows what else she took, but not plant herbs so much. She took these heavy mineral herbs they're heavy, so they, weigh down and anchor and settle the mind. But she felt even worse. Okay, so Dr. Wu diagnosed her pulse. The left was wiry and large, so he knew her blood was scant and fire was flourishing. Okay, yeah, wiry is a chi related pulse. And it would probably be softer if there was blood to soothe and mellow it. Okay. The rye was floating, slippery, and uneven, meaning chi was plentiful and phlegm was copious. So slippery, is phlegm and so forth. So then they use Wendan Tang, adding some herb that I don't really know what it is, a hyphen, and to soothe. Why that? I don't know, but that's what he added. She was at ease after several doses. Then he used Anshen Wan, calm the Shen pill. She took it often and completely recovered. So, okay, I don't have a lot of commentary. I'm just giving you the cases. You can ponder them. Judanchi, one of the four great masters of the Jinyuan dynasty, very, very famous doctor. He, has some interesting cases. He treated an unmarried girl who was dissatisfied with matters. So maybe she had somebody she wanted to marry but couldn't, or maybe she wanted to be married, but for whatever reason they had to wait, or maybe her family couldn't afford a good dowry for her. So she, who knows? Or maybe she was just generally dissatisfied. Maybe she wished she was richer. Maybe who knows? But, an unmarried girl is probably a teenager. And teenagers are easily dissatisfied. I was, weren't you? Okay. So she's dissatisfied. She had bound constraint in her spleen. So in modern times, we only associate constraint with the liver qi constraint, which you might call liver qi stagnation. But hundreds of years ago, they talked about lung constraint and spleen constraint and liver constraint, those three mainly. And so in the beginning, I thought that this meant liver was constraining the spleen, but having read enough from the old books, they really thought the spleen could be constrained, on its own without the liver as part of it. It's just kind of like stuck due to emotions and not, you know, liver. I mean, the spleen, should have an ascending motion and it's unable to ascend. And it's just out of balance. So she had bound constraint in her spleen and she did not eat for half a year. Well, that sounds pretty extreme, but we'll see. She did eat, she just didn't eat much. So, anorexia, something we might see today. She only ate cooked water chestnuts and several pieces of datsao, the dates, which are used as food, not only as medicine. When she was happy, she, splurged and ate a steamed bun, but it was only the size of a slingshot pellet, which is pretty small. She hated porridge. And so, she's having an eating disorder, right? Judanchi thought spleen chi was excessive. That's something we don't talk about so much. But, if spleen is unable to ascend, because it's stuck, not because it's deficient, then it's going to build up an excess. Also, damp could be an excess, but this doesn't sound like a damp case, really. Anyway, you can see the diagnosis was sometimes quite different in ancient times. So Jude thought that spleen chi was excessive, and he thought you couldn't dissipate it unless you used zhishe, which is in Wendan Tang. So he removed the bamboo, the juju, and used it, and she was feeling better after several tens of packages. So, that means like 20, 30, 40 packages of it. That's like a long treatment, but she got better. Hopefully she's eating more. It doesn't really tell us. Maybe she was less dissatisfied. Went on tongue. Okay. Another case under insomnia in Mingyi Leian, a Ming Dynasty collection of cases. An old person suffered deficiency vexation. So the patient's deficient, vexation kind of tends to be associated with heat. So like irritable and fidgety and physically uncomfortable, and had insomnia and constipation too. And funny thing, he had a path of hot chi that would surge up to his heart from below the umbilicus. So, from the Dantian region, this hot chi would surge up. He's having hot flashes. Well, it doesn't actually say that it's a man, it could be a woman, but they would probably say if it was a woman. Okay. So immediately after he had these hot flashes, he would feel muddle-headed and he felt like he was about to die, and he'd just be kind of out of it after he had these hot flashes. So some other doctor treated him for a month and had no results. this doctor used Da Huang to free the stool because he had constipation. And that Da Huang nearly killed the patient. It was too much. He's an old patient, probably a little deficient. Yeah, didn't seem like the right formula. So, sorry, this doesn't say whose case it is. It could be Wo Qian Yi, but there are other doctors, with the surname of Luo. Anyway, so the doctor diagnosed his 6 pulses, three positions on each side. They were deep and moderate. That's not a pulse for Da Huang. Then he gave Wendan Tang, I guess, with extra juru. And the person who collected these cases makes a note, the 11 organs obtain decisions from the gallbladder, or this could be translated, the 11 organs depend on the gallbladder. That's what it says in parentheses from the original commentary in the book I got this from. Okay, so he's trying to explain why Wendan Tang, because all the organs depend on Wendan Tang. The patient took the first cup around noon, and then, he had these episodes of hot qi surging up. The hot qi arrived below and reached below his heart, but it didn't go above his heart, and before it had. He took another cup in the late afternoon, and the hot flashes reached below his umbilicus, but didn't go above the umbilicus. And at around 7 p.m., he took a third cup of this medicine, of this Wendan Tang. The hot qi didn't surge up anymore ever again. He lived happily ever after. He's still somewhere in China drinking Wendan Tang. No, I'm joking. The next morning, Wu regulated the patient with herbs like binglang to course qi, to regulate qi, and the large intestine was then free. His bowels moved and he recovered. Actually, this seems to be a typo, in the old book. It says the large fu then was freed and he recovered. It must mean the large intestine, because remember, this was constipation as well as insomnia and other things. So I think that's a typo and should say large intestine. Anyway, that's my little set of 3 or 4 Wendan Tang cases for this time, and we'll have 2 more episodes of Wendan Tang.